Hello, everyone, and welcome to the wonderful world of TED Excellence. At least that's what I like to call it. I have a playlist on my channel if you want to see some of my past examinations of the wonderful world and educational benefits of TEDx. Today, we're going to be looking at something. What is the title of this thing? Let me pull it up here. It's kind of a long one. So the title of the presentation is Contest Culture: How Organizations Become Toxic and How to Fix Them. So I have no idea where this is going. I've watched the first, I think, like minute or so of it to at least see if it caught my attention, and it did a little bit. So it might be beneficial. It might be a big pile of nothing. I guess we'll find out together. Let's see. But before I begin that, we'll say hello to the people who have made themselves known in the chat. Hello, Sean Uli, Swan372, hello, No One Nowhere, hello, Jake Thompson, hello, Papa Frank, hello, Cultist4, hello, the gayest person on YouTube, hello, Faithless, hello, Havoc Vladimirovich Stalinov, hello, Mike Savage, hello, Peter Silak Hades 313, hello, This is Kyle, hello, and Thunder Thought, hello. All right, guys. Let's see. Now, let me pull this up here and make sure I got this. So again, just as last time, I've taken the video and I've boosted the audio a bit. So I'm going to do a quick sound check. I'm going to let the video play for about 10 seconds or so. You guys tell me if it's too loud, because then I will ratchet it back a little bit. But if it's fine, tell me in the chat it's fine. All right, so let's give a sound test. Okay, is that too loud? Is it loud enough? Let me know in the chat. Give a quick pause here, doing this on the fly. Also, I already had a internet hiccup a few minutes ago. So those of you that have been watching on Lords of the Night know that my internet loves playing with me. So hopefully, live TV, nothing goes awry on this broadcast. But if it does, and I suddenly drop out for some reason, please hang around for a minute or two. I'll hopefully be back in present time. Let's see. People say high side of good. I'm smidgen loud. Okay, so I'm going to turn it down just a smidge for posterity's sake. Okay, and we'll see how that is. As we proceed, I'll keep an eye on the chat, and if you guys think it's too loud or it spikes in places, let me know, because what we do here is going to be the final cut for the sake of the video that ends up on the channel in perpetuity, or at least until YouTube takes everything down. All right. Well, with that, let us begin in learning how to cleanse our organizations of toxicity.
25 years ago, I held my son Nathaniel's hand as we waited for a school bus. It was the first day of first grade, and he was not happy about it. He dragged himself onto that school bus, holding back tears, pausing just long enough on that top step to shoot me a look, at once despondent and accusatory, a double-edged dagger to his father's heart.
Is this guy a drama major by any chance?
A few stops later, a little girl eagerly hopped on that same bus.
How do you know that? You dropped your son off.
She was in a totally different mood. She was excited, optimistic, couldn't wait to join her classmates in the first grade.
Is this going to be some kind of comparison between girls in school and boys in school?
She carefully selected her first day outfit. Her dress, her backpack, her lunchbox, all featured her favorite character, Barney, the cuddly purple dinosaur.
I love you. You love me.
What happened next crushed her spirit. A boy on the bus loudly declared that Barney was for sissies.
Was that boy your son? I'm just guessing.
A couple others joined in, mocking the girl. She was immediately reduced to tears, publicly humiliated. She wished she was anywhere but on that bus or going into the first grade. Others on the bus put their heads down, afraid they'd become the next victims of the bully.
Boy, you know a lot was what was going on that bus that day. Were you The driver?
When she got home later that day, the girl carefully gathered up all of her beloved Barney belongings and threw them into the trash.
Peer pressure.
Think of a time when you, like that little girl, were rejected by a group. How did it feel?
Well, I'll tell you, YouTube sure has brought me down the last couple of days.
We evolved to be social creatures, so much so that social rejection activates the same areas of the brain as physical injury. Yet we often define our groups by who they exclude.
Whoa. Is that saying that words are violence? Is that where we're going with this?
On that bus, a dominant classmate defined who was in and who was out, the winners and the losers of first grade. And Barney fans were most definitely out.
Oh my God. Okay, seriously, was that boy your son? Is that the twist we're coming to?
Now, why pick on Barney?
Because Barney is silly and kids are mean. You want to talk about the psychology of children? All right.
This choice was no accident. Did you know that Barney is supposed to be a T-Rex? Literally the tyrant king of the Cretaceous.
He's not a T-Rex. He's a giant stuffed costume that's meant for children and to be inoffensive. He doesn't even have sharp teeth.
Yet Barney rejects ruthless dominance in favor of kindness, empathy, and love.
Oh, I see where we're going.
He should have been the fearsome king of the jungle. Instead, he's a plush purple pushover.
Okay, so Barney exemplifies what we should be doing in rejecting our toxic instincts?
This makes Barney that most subversive kind of radical, someone who surrendered masculinity for femininity.
Please don't tell me we're going to center Barney the purple dinosaur as a representative of ideal masculinity. Oh, please.
A sissy. Now, I'm not here to bash men or...
Really? Really? Because I'll tell you what, you just did.
To say that masculinity is all bad.
You just said that.
As the sociologist Michael Kimmel notes, if you ask people what makes a good man, you'll get all sorts of wonderful traits. Courageous, protects the weak, reliable, dependable. But ask people, what does it take to be a real man? And the toxic traits emerge.
The toxic traits, what it takes to be a real man. Take responsibility for your actions, protect your family, get a job, earn your money. I don't know, not act like you're going to fall apart like fragile glass under pressure. That's all toxic. That's what I think of. But I don't know what people you talk to. Maybe the people you're talking to don't like men.
Callous, ruthless, dominant.
Competitive, stoic, in control.
When these real man norms prevail, everyday social situations become a zero-sum competition for dominance that my colleagues and I label the masculinity contest.
Are you and your colleagues, by any chance, not very masculine as a group? Is that how you guys bond?
Now, there is nothing wrong with honest competition.
But you just... Oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with honest competition, but...
We should all strive to be the best, and we should be proud of our wins and celebrate them without apology.
Yeah, okay, but... Oh, and look at this guy. He's taking notes. He's going to be a master at fighting masculinity.
The problem with the masculinity contest is that it perverts honest competition, and it becomes win at all costs.
That's what competition is. That's what excellence is. That is what challenging yourself to be better than you were or better than the competition. I mean, I'm not advocating for cheating, obviously, but competition is competition.
Because real men never lose.
Horse shit. Horse shit. One of the biggest lessons you hear, and it is a little bit cliche, is that the best learning in life comes from failure. And men who learn how to pick themselves up after falling down, that is an attribute to be admired and desired. So maybe you have a skewed notion of what masculinity is, but I couldn't tell by the way you're behaving.
A single stumble, a vulnerable emotion, a chink in the armor.
What did you say? That was a racial slur.
And you too could be a sissy.
A sissy. You seem to be focused on this word sissy. You used it to describe Barney, and you've used it again. I wonder, is that something you were called when you were a kid?
Now, in childhood, it all revolves around physical dominance. One of my most vivid memories as a kid was when we moved to a new neighborhood. I went out to try to make some new friends. I quickly ran into a mandatory ritual. You had to fight the alpha boy to determine your place in the neighborhood.
Were you joining a gang?
Now, you know how sometimes that scrawny kid with the glasses kind of gets fed up with the bullying, and suddenly, bam, pulls out this punch he didn't know he had in him, bloodies the bully's nose, unexpectedly wins the fight.
Well, I mean, I know that because I was a skinny kid with glasses, and I did get in a couple of fights when I was a kid, but not too many. Mainly because I kind of didn't become attracted to the kind of attitude that was arrogance. You know, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, and I never really liked arrogance. And most of the kids in my neighborhood who were bullies and such and alpha males, they weren't in their positions necessarily because of respect or anything, just because they were jerks. But I didn't glom onto that. But yeah, no, I got into a couple of fights, sure. So is this something you did? Did you dip your toes into the waters of toxic masculinity by lashing out violently?
That is exactly the opposite of what happened to me.
Oh.
He wasn't the neighborhood bully for nothing. Predictably, I was the one who ended up bloodied and on the ground. The fight was mercifully brief. The physical injuries were minor, but the social consequences for my place in the neighborhood, that was enduring.
Okay, but what did you learn from that? Okay, that would be marked as, say, a failure. That'd be marked as, say, a defeat, literally and figuratively. Did you learn something from that? Or did you internalize the consequences? Or, moreover, did you put the blame on your failure to anyone other than yourself?
In adulthood, the locus of this contest shifts to the workplace, traditionally a male domain.
The workplace is traditionally a male domain. Okay.
Yes, women have flooded into the workplace in ever increasing numbers.
But
men still maintain a stranglehold at the top.
A stranglehold. That's interesting terminology you're using there. So men are jealously and competitively and ruthlessly holding on to power. Okay.
There are fewer female CEOs in the S&P 1500 than there are men named James.
Oh, good. Okay, for those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, how many times have you heard this exact same complaint? Now, he used the S&P 1500, where usually it's like the Fortune 500. But it's always something like, there are fewer female CEOs than there are CEOs named Peter or Paul or James or whatever. As though that means anything. If all the female CEOs were named Rhonda, would that mean something? It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. But again, and we talked about this last night on Lords of the Night, if you see a statistical disparity between demographics, the God of the Gaps theory of interpretation says, obviously, intentional discrimination. It's not a result of personal choices. It's not a result of other factors. It's obvious that there is an institutional structure set up to prevent the the lower demographic in number from achieving the same rates as the higher demographic in number.
Or William, or Robert, or John.
Oh my God, so many names.
In the Fortune 500, over 95% of the CEOs are men.
Oh, we did get to the Fortune 500. I wondered why you skipped that.
It's not surprising that when men rule the roost, they might import some of the norms that they were socialized with.
And women do not do that in any other area of life than work, or even in work. Have you ever seen a competitive couple of women in a workplace? Maybe you haven't. I don't know. Maybe you only spend your time with men.
And when those are the real man norms, the workplace becomes a win or die gladiatorial arena.
It really depends on the business. I've been in businesses where you've had sales guys. Like I worked for a timeshare company. Oh God, you want to talk about competitive. Now, fortunately, or unfortunately, depending how you look at it, I worked on the paperwork side of the business, but I saw what was going on in the sales room. Okay, those guys were ruthless because if they didn't meet their minimum every month in sales, they got cut. You know, they were paid on commission and so on. So yes, the competition was ruthless. But you know what? The top salesperson for like 6 months running when I first started there was a woman. She was ruthless because she knew how to play the game. It didn't matter what genitals she had. It mattered about her determination and skill. And that's how it is in some business. And I don't know what to tell you, but if you're not a capitalist, and maybe you're not, that is what it sometimes comes down to. A little bit of ruthlessness. Because corporations are not people, my friend.
And to the victor go the spoils, the perceived right to bully, humiliate, even sexually harass subordinates.
Whoa, that was a jump. The perceived right to sexually harass subordinates because you're in control. I mean, sure, some people go that route. That was kind of a jump, though.
When scandals break, we rightfully blame the perpetrators, the Harvey Weinsteins or Les Moonves.
Uh-huh. Is there a but coming?
But there's other questions we really need to be asking. How did these people get to be so powerful in the first place? How did they get away with these behaviors, sometimes for decades, even when they were an open secret?
Because people care more about their careers than they do about telling the truth about someone in power. I mean, that really is it. And I'm not gonna say if he comes up with a point of people keep silent, etc. It's true. You know, if you are someone in Hollywood and you come into the situation and Harvey Weinstein can make or break a career at the drop of a hat, and you see or you hear about something that might be untoward or even illegal going on, are you going to be the one to speak up? Because it's the old phrase, if you're going to take a shot at the king, you sure as hell better hit, because if you miss, you're gone. And that's really it. It's the fear. It's the fear of power. It's the fear of someone having control over your fate and your life when you're in a position of subordination. And that's what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's Hollywood, sexual harassment, or anything else. That's just human nature. You know, I mean, see what happens when somebody comes out and tells the truth to power in, say, Wall Street or something. You would think someone like that would be hailed as a hero for exposing corruption or something else. You know, the people that were talking about Bernie Madoff before he finally gave up, you know, they were shunned away. They were rejected. They were told that they were crazy or they don't know what they're talking about. You know, because Bernie Madoff was a big guy with a lot of money and a lot of influence. And again, you take a shot and you miss in that kind of situation and you're out and the bad guy wins. It's just sometimes, unfortunately, the way life goes, you know.
One answer, masculinity contest cultures enable, even encourage misconduct.
Okay, just tell me that this never happens with women. That there's never been an instance of a woman in power of something who has somehow gotten away with horrible, horrible things, even though people would say otherwise or could say otherwise, but feel like they don't have the gravitas or the cachet to do so. I can think of, I don't know, Hillary Clinton, maybe.
A 2017 New York Times investigation revealed what could then only be called a masculinity contest culture at Uber. People bragged about sabotaging projects in an attempt to undermine their boss to try to take their place.
And some companies have that kind of culture, like Enron. Oh my God. And it's crazy. And those companies attract some pretty ruthless people. And it's not healthy. And you think Uber's getting away with it? I mean, you're talking about it now. It's no big secret. Do you want to work at Uber?
Masculine bravado was mistaken for brilliance.
Yes. Arrogance is mistaken for confidence. All right.
Sexual harassment was tolerated as long as you were considered a top performer or a member of the in crowd.
Tolerated, well, then the people that allowed that to happen are complicit in covering up crimes. We don't usually look kindly upon such people when things are exposed like that. But the problem is, if they don't get exposed, if people keep quiet, whether they are witnesses or victims, then it just goes on. I mean, someone has to step up, and it's not easy, especially if your career's on the line. But you have to weigh which is more important, your career or doing what's right. In this day and age, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, how do you know if your workplace might be a masculinity contest culture?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure you'll tell us in a moment, but thank you, Point Curation. YouTube may terminate your access if YouTube believes you're no longer commercially viable. I am not subordinate to YouTube. I am the advertiser and the consumer. What happened to broadcast yourself? Yes, for those of you listening to this in the future, possibly, or unaware otherwise, YouTube has changed its terms of service that effective December 10th. They've put a caveat in their terms of service that says that if they, however they define it, find you commercially unviable, or they're not commercially viable, they can just take away your channel or take away your access to your channel or whatever else. Now, nobody knows what that means. I'm pretty sure that it's just put in there to cover up for the notion of, if we find your content offensive, we reserve the right to just take it down, even if it comes down to some kind of freedom of speech argument otherwise. They won't say it's offensive because that has a whole bunch of other connotations. Let's say it's not commercially viable. Well, the vast majority of my videos, I don't monetize. So most of my content is not, by design, commercially viable. Does that make me subject to losing my channel? I don't know. But anyway, back to what makes a workplace toxically masculine competitive.
My colleagues Jennifer Berto, Natalia Alonso, and I have investigated this, and we find that there are 4 core norms that make up a masculinity contest.
Is one of them men?
The first one is show no weakness. In these cultures, what's valued is somebody who never admits they have a doubt, never admits they made a mistake, never shows a vulnerable emotion.
Okay, that would be someone who has an infallibility complex, or, they're, I don't know, self-conscious about failure or whatever. I mean, if you're in a competitive environment, and again, it depends on the business. It depends on what it is that you're talking about. If you're talking about sales, you're talking about like a car dealership or something, depending on the environment that's encultured by the people that own it, it could be very dog eat dog. And that just is the nature of the business. But showing weakness, showing something else, showing a soft underbelly that someone could take advantage of, that kind of business, that kind of incentivization, that attracts a certain psychology of person. It doesn't represent all men. It represents what is necessary to succeed in those environments. And sometimes, oftentimes, that attracts men because men are more prone to that kind of competition. They find themselves more attracted to that kind of competition. But that's just the nature of the beast, so to speak.
The second norm is strength and stamina. Even in white-collar organizations where it doesn't really matter, the jocks are preferred and promoted over other people.
Well, because having a physical presence in a room where you're talking to people still counts for something. I mean, how you carry yourself in general in society counts for something. How you groom yourself, how you maintain yourself. I mean, like our speaker here, he's dressed very nice. He's dressed very, I'd say academically. I'd look at him and think that he was perhaps a doctor or a professor or something. That is what he exudes. He exudes a intellectual aura, let's say. Now, in the business world, what kind of aura do you want to express? What kind of plumage do you want to show as the peacock in your office? Having a well-maintained physicality is part of sending a message, is part of dominating a room, is part of getting attention. This is not unique to workplaces. This is not unique to men, obviously. So, and also, if you come into a business having already had a, let's say, pedigree of competition, you're going to be more well suited to certain business environments. You're going to have the kind of, the kind of steel spine to take the punches and roll with the difficulties and still pick yourself up and get on. That's the whole thing about failing and learning from failure. It's anyway, I could go on. Let's continue.
Third, put work first. Pretend you have no obligations outside of work. Certainly don't prioritize family over work. Always be available. And for the core of...
Oh, let's back up a little second. If you have no obligations, so are you talking about like they're mostly single men, or men just ignore and neglect their families? I'm not quite sure where you were going with that one. But number 4 is what?
Of the competition, which is dog eat dog. Your coworkers are not your colleagues. They're their competitors. So trust no one, always watch your back, and compete. Show no mercy.
Well, it depends again on what kind of business you're talking about. You ever seen Glengarry Glen Ross? It is a great movie. Al Pacino and Jack Lemmon and all these guys. Great movie. Okay. But yeah, your coworkers are your competition. That is how they make their money. That is how some businesses thrive, on competition, on someone really going at it. They set tiers of goals. I mean, they have it on a board, like who cleared this much this month, etc. There's a scorecard. But again, it depends on what business. It depends on the environment. It depends on what part of the business you're in. There are parts of business that have nothing to do with competition, right? I mean, unless you're setting some kind of competitive level that people have to try to achieve, you're just a guy sitting at your desk doing your job. And the only competition you have is, do you clear your work for the day? The end. If they have some kind of incentivization structure where it's like, well, if you do this much in this amount of time, you get this bonus, well, then you're adding a whole other aspect into the mix. But anyway, I could go on.
In sample after sample involving thousands of participants, we consistently find that when people report these norms are endorsed in the workplace, that they are much more likely to report it's a dismal, dysfunctional place to work.
Is that because they're losing, or because it's a dismal, dysfunctional place to work? And then I also have to ask, how is their bottom line at the end of the day? Because really, the business does not care so much about how you feel, so much as what the profit margin is.
They are much more likely to report that they have a toxic boss, an insecure tyrant who belittles and humiliates their subordinates.
Or are their subordinates just unable to compete? I mean, I have to question the perspective of the messenger here if you're talking about a competitive environment and the people complaining might be the ones that just can't cut it.
Someone who blames everyone else for failures, takes credit for all their successes.
Okay, there are assholes like that in business. Okay, and that happens everywhere. Some bosses suck.
Bullying and harassment, both sexual and ethnic, are much more common.
Sexual and ethnic? Oh, okay. Ethnic harassment. Not a phrase I hear very often, if at all.
And people in these workplaces are miserable as a result.
Well, then go get a different job. No one, you're not deserving of a comfortable workplace if you feel, I mean, aside from the law, like if you're being harassed or bullied or somehow mistreated, yeah, that's totally legitimate to complain about. But if you're just, oh, this environment sucks, or I'm sad, or I don't feel comfortable, my boss is a jerk, well, then go get a different job.
They report much higher levels of burnout and stress. They're much more likely to say that they want to leave in the next few years, and they report lower psychological well-being.
Then go get a different job. I can't tell you what a change it was for me to go from working in a giant corporation as just a tiny cog in the machine to ending up working at a small company where I could see the actual fruits of my labors. I could actually participate in what was going on in the company instead of just feeling like a mechanism in the company. And you know, it changed my perspective and my mood completely. But you have to make that choice. No one is forcing you to be in a job that you are not happy in. I mean, circumstances may vary, but really, take the initiative. Look for other work.
And the misery extends to men as well as women as long as you don't quite fit in. Imagine a boy in Barney gear aboard that school bus.
Wait a second. Wait. Men are victimized by a masculine competition? What? I mean, you would almost think that the competition is the dividing line and not the genitals.
How do you think he would have been treated? But the situation is especially problematic for women.
Oh, it's especially problematic for women. Okay, so world coming to an end, women most affected.
Because they're in a bind. When you're in one of these gladiatorial workplaces, you better pick up a weapon and fight.
And girls don't know how to fight?
But we know from decades of research that when women are assertive, they are disliked and less likely to be promoted.
Okay, so it's not that women don't know how to fight, it's that they cannot fight as effectively as the men?
An aggressive man might be labeled a brilliant jerk, someone not only to be tolerated, but put on the fast track. An aggressive woman gets a different label that also starts with B, but I'm guessing you're realizing it doesn't stand for brilliance.
Are you self-censoring because you don't think we can handle it? And are there no women out there who are bees, as it were? Just like there are men who are bastards, but are still successful? I mean, this is really the problem, isn't it? If you're successful in your job, but your attitude sucks, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a decision on whoever your superior is, granted you're not the boss yourself, as to whether or not your benefit to the company outweighs your interpersonal skills. But that's true of men and women. I have seen exceedingly successful female salespeople because they know what they are doing. They're still personable, although you always wonder if they're not trying to sell you all the time. But then that's true of salespeople et al.
Workplace masculinity contests intensify women's double bind. You gotta fight like a man to survive, but somehow come across as ladylike and nice while doing so.
If you say so, I don't think that's true to begin with. And competition has no gender.
Now, even if leaders don't care about whether their workers are happy or whether they promote women to leadership positions,
because they're women? Because that would be illegal.
They should care about reforming the masculinity contest. Why? Because they are inherently dysfunctional. Everyone's looking out for number one, instead of cooperating with their colleagues to achieve common organizational goals.
Except in organizations that set expectations on a personal performance level. Have you ever run a business where sales are a key component by any chance at all? And also, I don't think he's yet addressed the question, are environments that have this quote unquote masculine competition, Are they unsuccessful at doing business? Do they not make profits? Because that really is what it comes down to in a company.
Misconduct is rife, leading to reputation-damaging scandals and expensive lawsuits.
And that never happens in companies that don't have any particular masculine competition.
And people are miserable, so they leave, creating a talent drain.
Well, then that's just what happens to a company where they're fostering that kind of attitude, I guess. That's a good thing, right? I mean, are you going to give us any examples, by the way? Any like active examples aside from the most extreme cases like Weinstein and Les Moonves?
Well, if these organizations are so dysfunctional, why do these cultures persist?
Because they make money.
Do you remember that fable, The Emperor's New Clothes? In it, a couple of con men claim to have woven these wonderful robes for the king. Here's the catch. You can only see the robes if you're fit for your office. From the king on down, everybody claims to see these invisible robes, because to do otherwise, they fear, will be to reveal that I'm unfit for my role. Masculinity contest norms work in exactly the same way.
Exactly the same way. Okay, let me see if I can game this out here. So, con men try to fool people into not admitting their own, I don't know, misplacement, uselessness, inappropriate station in life, let's say. Okay. And then they end up looking like fools. So masculinity contests are the clothes? Well, except that there's a tangible benefit in that you get a better job. And wait a second. The clothes are only seen by those fit for office. Masculinity contests are for people competing to be superior. One is working from the top down mentally, and the other one's working from the bottom up. I think. Sort of. I don't know.
If you question the norms, you're admitting you're a weakling. You're not tough enough for this environment.
Can you give me an example of what questioning the norms is?
You can't handle it. So instead, what do? We perform the norms. You might conspicuously stay at your desk, pretending to work, until after the boss leaves, so that you can look like a put work first winner.
Yeah. And you know what? If you don't actually produce or actually, succeed over the level that they expect you to, and you're just putting on a show, your numbers will reflect that, and you will eventually be cut. Not because you were challenging masculine competition, but because you weren't doing your job.
Worse still, we disparage people who don't live up to those norms. Did you hear that John's going on parental leave? He's going to be on the mommy track now.
Okay, when you first said challenge those norms, I was thinking of somebody who's complaining that they can't make the cut. If expectations are set for you as an employee, that you have to make so many calls a day as like a telemarketer kind of thing, and I did that for a while, or you have to clear so many contracts a day, or you have to sell as many widgets as you can in a day. If those expectations are set for you, if it's put into the job description, and then after you agree to become an employee in this position, you can't maintain that level of output, complaining about it is not challenging the norms. Now, if we're talking about how people treat each other in the workplace, as an example, I recently had to, and this doesn't happen very often, but I recently had to level a little report on some behavior that was going on between two of my coworkers. There's people talk, occasionally people have arguments and things, but it's one of those things where it's out of the ordinary when you hear it, and something needs to be said, right? Okay. So there was a norm for that office place of civility, let's say, and these guys crossed it. All right. Challenging that. So them acting outside the lines of what people would consider cordial in our environment would be challenging the norms. but it's challenging it in a way that is disruptive to the flow of our workplace. If you're challenging the norms by complaining that people are too competitive in an environment where competition is key to the business, you're not being brave necessarily. You just can't make the cut. There's a difference there. But then he hasn't given us any specific examples of what he is talking about. So I can only guess as to what he's talking about.
I heard that Mariah teared up at her first year review. She's never going to make it here.
Okay, gossip mongers are gossip mongers. Does that mean Mariah will not? Does that mean Mariah lacks the conviction to succeed? I mean, what? People talking, people saying things? Does this go back to the fact that you said the earliest part of this, that saying things or emotional reflexes to bad feelings are the same as getting hit in the head?
Everyone may be privately miserable. After all, most of them are toiling under toxic bosses. And even the winners have to constantly watch their backs. But because everybody performs the norms publicly, there's an illusory consensus that everybody agrees with them.
Well, if nobody points out actual problems going on, nothing will get addressed. That is true. That is what led to Weinstein. That is what led to Les Moonves. So if that's the point you're making, you've got a point there somewhere. But again, not every workplace operates like this. I don't know how many companies you've worked for. I don't know how many work environments you've been in. But a lot of companies don't operate like that. You're talking about the most extreme of situations or very specific areas of business.
Well, if that's the case, can these masculinity contests ever be reformed? Yes, they can, but it takes commitment from the leadership on down. And that only happens when leaders realize it's critical to the bottom line.
Oh, so it's not a moral question that you're arguing, it's a profit motive. So you want to cure masculine competition by arguing to business leadership that changing masculine competition will increase their success rate. Do I have that correct?
Let me give you an example.
A what? An example? Jesus.
Oil rigs are a very macho environment. They're also a very dangerous place to work.
Yeah, funny that.
2010's Deepwater Horizon explosion killed 11 people and created an environmental disaster that the estimated costs of all this are $65 billion and counting.
Just out of curiosity, and honestly, I don't know off the top of my head, what were the gender of all of the people that lost their lives in the Deepwater Horizon? Just curious.
All of this would suggest that safety should be an organizational priority. How do you make oil rigs safer? Well, you can import new technology, that might help, but people run these rigs.
And people are fallible. And it doesn't matter what your gender is. Please don't tell me that men are more fallible than women.
And what they do really matters. Real man masculinity is all about courting danger. Safety is for sissies.
Yeah, because, most men have no desire whatsoever to go home to their families after the workday ends. Most men just go out there looking to get themselves killed. You got it. All those guys on Deepwater Horizon, they didn't give a rip about safety. All they cared about was the oil, the oil, the oil. And that was it. None of those guys on there cared about safety. You're absolutely right. All those guys that lost their lives, they were asking for it.
Real men die younger than women because they take physical risks.
Yeah, and why are they taking those risks most times? To provide for their families.
They work nonstop to prove their strength and stamina.
Or to earn money to support their families.
This can lead to green-lighting dangerous procedures and suppressing doubts about them, or making a bad decision in a fog of exhaustion.
Yes, and these things only happen to men. Okay.
When one oil company decided to reform the safety culture, they did not have quashing masculinity in mind, but they quickly realized they had to inculcate new norms. They had
New safety standards, you mean?
to make it so that people talked to each other and had each other's back.
Yes, communication and people like standing up and saying something was wrong was certainly a problem in Deepwater Horizon. And it was a problem in a whole bunch of other places. If somebody does not say when there's actually a problem, then nothing can get done. This is what happened with Weinstein. This is what happened to Les Moonves and so many others, where people were more concerned about their career than doing what was right and or safe. Now, I don't recall all that went wrong with Deepwater Horizon. I'm sure there was a whole bunch of cascade failures there. And communication between people who knew there was a problem versus those that didn't care there was a problem certainly was part of the situation. So setting new communication and safety standards is not a ding against masculinity. If women were doing all the work and the exact same thing happened, would you blame masculinity? Or are you saying that women are just incapable of making such mistakes?
They made it so that you were rewarded for expressing doubts and for listening to the doubts expressed by others, for taking mandatory breaks. The result of the safety interventions turned out to be an 84% reduction in accidents.
Imagine that.
But there was an important byproduct. Bullying decreased. Inclusion and cooperation increased. The masculinity contest had been mitigated.
The masculinity contest. Again, I ask, if you replaced all of the people in these situations with women and the exact same things happened, would it have anything to do with sexuality or gender? Or would it have something to do with communication, caution, and safety standards, which are, I'm sorry to tell you, genderless?
So how many of you out there work on oil rigs? I can't see anything, so I'm not seeing any hands. So probably not
So why'd you ask the question?
a lot of roughnecks in this audience. Well, let me give you a totally different example.
Oh, another example? Oh my God, weird. This guy's being generous.
High-tech organizations. Silicon Valley is not blue-collar macho, but it has its own bro culture, infamously.
Okay, sure. If I watch that TV show, I might believe you.
What do these corporations care about?
Money. Because corporations aren't people. They care about a profit, and that's it. Thank you, Point Curation. Channel USCSB Deepwater Horizon Blowout Animation. Oh, is there an actual animation of this? Aha. So for those of you that want to see the actual mechanical failure of Deepwater Horizon, Point Curation has put a link into the chat. Interesting. Now, I mean, I paid a lot of attention to that when it was going on, but my memory is obviously faded on the details. So there you go.
Innovation is their lifeblood.
Yes, which is competing with other people to find better ideas before the other guy in order to make more profit.
Usually accomplished in teams. Well, how do you have an innovative team?
Yeah, how do you have an innovative team? Write a book on that and you'll make a lot of money. I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
Have you ever been in a brainstorming group where the other people in the group, what they really wanted to do was cut down everybody else's idea to prove I'm the smartest person in the room?
Yeah, well, I guess that would be a matter of HR or the supervisors or whatever else screening people for their capabilities and putting teams together that will be productive. However, you have to introduce a certain amount of competition into such instances, because if everybody is a pushover, then one person is going to rule the roost. You have to have people that have strong opinions or at least assertive personalities that can still get along. Now, that, I will say, is a very, very rare set of qualities these days, but it can happen. So either you put a team together that can do that and you find something new, or you put a team together of a bunch of glad-handers and yes men who don't have any ability to, I don't know, challenge the dominant person in the group, which, by the way, is not inherently a man.
Does that inhibit or help creativity? Well, the research on this is abundantly clear. In the most innovative groups, they have the most cooperative and supportive social relations.
Does that mean there is no competition of ideas?
In the most innovative groups, people report, I can float a half-baked idea, and I know I'm not going to get cut off at the knees. Other people will take that idea and try to see what's good about it. It'll spark further ideas. People are disinhibited because they're not worried about being humiliated through their contribution. Creativity is inspired, innovation is born.
Yes, but by introducing your idea to the group, you are testing it to see for flaws. And then there's a competition of how to improve things. Is that a masculine contest? Or is that just a contest of ideas? And is that inherently bad if the entire team is made up of men?
If you went into a high-tech company with a research-based innovation intervention, you would find that it would naturally mitigate the masculinity contest.
You have yet to identify what the masculinity contest is, because so far it sounds like just the basic sense of competition is a masculinity contest. But that you contrast this with the Deepwater Horizon, a completely different industry, a completely different tempo of concern and danger and everything else, with a bunch of nerds sitting in an office in Silicon Valley doling out about the next app. Okay, moving on.
So, in sum, masculinity contest cultures are dismal and dysfunctional places to be.
You have not defined what that means, nor that it is inherent to every business out there, or that it is inherent to men.
They are mini Chernobyls waiting to melt down, and socially, they're kind of the equivalent of that bully-infested school bus.
Yes, because only men can be bullies. Girls are never mean to anyone.
But they can be reformed.
Re-educated?
By a mission-based intervention. So reform can occur through a mission-based intervention.
What is a mission-based intervention? Did I miss that part?
That makes a more functional organization, and as a byproduct, makes a more cooperative and inclusive organization.
Does it make a more profitable organization?
Just perhaps an organization where the adult version of that enthusiastic little girl in the Barney dress might have the chance to rise to be a respected leader who motivates through inspiration rather than fear. Thanks.
Yeah, except that in your example, the little girl took all of her Barney stuff and threw it away at the first drop of any competition. I mean, not competition, but any resistance by the people around her. I mean, she gave up. At the first sign of difficulty, she gave up. I don't know what you're trying to say with that, but that is a bad, bad example. Anyway, what did we learn from this? Well, that dog-eat-dog competition, however that is defined, and apparently regardless of industry, is inherently a male problem rife with male attributes and the worst parts of male masculinity. Because competition is inherently bad. I mean, it's one of those situations where he wove in common sense arguments against something that is inherently abstract and non-defined, like Deepwater Horizon. Okay, another company, which he didn't name, changed their safety standards on the basis of what happened with Deepwater Horizon, and then their safety record went up, and everybody there was happier. It's like, well, great, that's great. Let me ask you something: did their profits for the year take a dip because they weren't churning and burning as fast as they could as compared to as they were beforehand? And I'm not saying that profit should be the only motive, obviously. I mean, if you increase safety at the cost of a couple of billion of your billions and billions of dollars profit every year, that's probably a good price to pay versus people's lives and safety. But getting along and everybody being kumbaya does not necessarily work in every business environment. Again, go to a sales floor of a car dealership. Go to the sales department of a timeshare company. Go to any business where there is an expectation set, and if you drop below the minimum, you get cut from the job because either you are producing or you're not. Corporations do not care about your feelings so much as they care about your profits. Now, the interpersonal stuff, hey, if you've got a boss or a superior who is harassing people, who is, making fun of people, sexually assaulting people, etc., that is not part of the business process. That is somebody being an asshole. And you need to address that. Is it inherently masculine? Well, obviously, there has never been any women who have ever taken advantage of anyone underneath them before. Except in elementary schools, I guess, because it only happens there. Now, did he tell us how to cleanse this from our organizations? Because that was what the title promised, is that, there's a toxic contest and he's going to teach us how to cleanse it from our organizations. All he said was mission-based, incentives or something? Mission-based changes? I'm not quite sure what that means. Well, what the mission, we're going to improve safety or something, and that decreases the masculine contest. I don't know. I'll take some reactions from you guys, and I'll say hello to some people who have popped in since the last time I checked at the beginning of things. If I miss your name, say hello in the chat, and I will be sure to say hello to you. I'm going to scroll up a bit. Let's see. Peter D. Bear, hello. Chat Mort, hello. Jared Hart Norris, hello. Shiro Amada, hello. NL In, hello. Maniac Man 2030, hello. Jimbly, hello. Faithless, hello. I'm not sure if I said hello to you earlier. If I did, there you go. Check Your Logic, hello. Valerie Roger, hello. Duck Dog, hello. Who else? No one nowhere. Peter Bear. Red Chaos Tree, hello. Mike Savage, hello. Skeptic Simba, hello. Guntsky, hello. Hey Momo, hello. Who else is here? I see Manic, hello. And then chat jumped. Ophelia, the Happy Red Panda, hello. RVN Down, hello. Turkey Hawk, thank you so much. Keep it up. With a little exerciser, thank you. Devil Fruit Zero, hello. Nicholas Daly, sorry, hello. Old Guy Gamer, hello. Aether Toast, hello. And and then chat jumped again. So if I missed you, just say hello in the chat. Wandering Lisa, hello. All right, so what did you guys think of the little talk there? Let me scroll up a bit. Shiro Amada says, Betty was an only child with no extra relations near his age, has no kids, and has no friends with kids. That's why he has no self-awareness. I have no idea what this guy's background is at all. But the little story he gave about how he confronted the bully in his neighborhood as a kid, where apparently in his neighborhood, in order to get along with all the boys, you had to be beat into their gang, I guess, and he got his ass kicked. Now, I'm curious to know what happened after that, because how you deal with failure says a lot about you, sometimes more than how you deal with success. But I don't know, maybe the proof is in the pudding. Duck Dog says, innovation generally comes at the cost of lives. It's the rule of stupid people are getting more and more clever. Well, in the course of history, that's probably true. I mean, the worst mistakes end up costing someone their life, and then you discover the safety thing that would have prevented that particular situation. Mike Savage says, I have a feeling that the guy went from second level ed to college and stayed in college and never experienced real world work. He needs to shovel dung for a while for perspective. Yeah, I don't know what this guy's educational or professional background is, but he was talking in such broad generalities about things and not really offering any specific examples except those that were the most high profile in the media, and then using the little girl on a bus and then Barney the purple dinosaur as an example of healthy masculinity. I really don't know how, let's say, eclectic his experiences are in life, either with competition in general or with other men. Moonshock, hello. The Pissed Off Shih Tzu, hello. Jake Thompson, hello. He says, Scribelight, if you go to the menu of chat, there is a participant menu, so you don't have to worry about chat jumping. Or well, I don't know that, but complaining about the chat jumping is kind of a tradition now. And thank you, Manic, so much. Hiya, little corgi. Peter Silakades 313 says, I bet he has preferred pronouns in his Twitter bio. It's possible. Cannibal Caretaker, hello. He was the girl on the bus. Well, I kept wondering when he was going to circle back to his initial opening. Like, he put his son on the bus, and then his son just kind of disappeared from the story. I was sure that he was going to say something like, and that boy that bullied that little girl was my son. So I knew I had a lot of work to do, or something like that. I was almost certain that we were going to get something like that, but it never happened again. He never mentioned his son again, which is, I don't know if that's telling of anything, but I found it a little odd. Anal Lynn, Scribelight, it sounds like he has never been one of the guys and hates it. I gotta wonder. I gotta wonder if that wasn't some internalized self-hatred going on there and pushing it out on everybody else. Chatmort said, it's like if you ate too much TV dinner lasagna and had a fever dream that you were watching a TEDx talk, almost incoherent. He kept getting to places where I thought he was going to make a more, clear or salient point, but then he just, drifted off into abstractions again. And when he finally got to examples, it was like, those are probably not the best examples, because improving safety standards based on a disaster that was part mechanical, part communication, etc., that's not an example of curing masculinity. That's an example of fixing a problem. And fixing problems, well, that may be an aspect of masculinity. I don't know. And let's see. Lucifer Never Changes. Hello. Scribelight, he sounds like he got beaten up a lot in school and standing up to the bullies was his fantasy of what he wished had happened. Could be. I don't know. And RVN Down says, I think he equates individuality with positive masculinity. It seemed more like he was equating individuality with toxic masculinity, and that, being more inclusive and everything is the healthy masculinity. Because as we know, men never work together to achieve a goal. It just never happens. They're always trying to stab each other in the back, those evil men. They're always trying to get one on the other guy all the time, forever. There's never any kind of teamwork that occurs. And I'm not imagining guys running up and down a field with helmets and bright jerseys on right now or anything at all. At all. I'm not thinking of that at all as an example where men work together to assist each other, to achieve a goal, and become friends and rely upon one another. Ever. With army helmets on. Anyway, I could go on. Nicholas Daly, I think they all use kids to prove a point. It prevents criticism of their points. Yeah, trying to attack somebody over kids. But of course, that example was just so bizarre because he used an example of a little girl who encountered criticism. I mean, she wasn't beaten up. He didn't say that she was physically threatened or something. She was made fun of. And so she went home and threw away all of her Barney toys. And there was no continuation of that story to where she folded her arms and said, I like Barney, and that's the end of it, and I'm still going to wear Barney. And the kids never bothered her again. I mean, that would be a more, inspiring story rather than one of just, I'm going to throw away everything and give up at the first sign of difficulty. Because that's not masculine. But then you were talking about a little girl. And of course, as we know, little girls can't stand up for themselves, I guess. I'm not quite sure what lesson he was trying to teach us there. But guys, thank you so much for joining me on this odyssey of another time into the wonderful world of TEDx. I hope you feel educated as I do. And that might not be much, but, it is what it is. Thank you for joining me. Everybody who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though my audience is the best behaved audience in the world, even more so, I'll just say, than maybe the entirety of the Lords of the Night audience, because you guys are special. You came out to talk to me. But maybe that's my arrogance talking. I should probably take my masculinity and go elsewhere, because that's unhealthy. So anyway, guys, hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Satsu's channel for Lords of the Night. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.